Hello again, everyone. So now we are going to move on from our discussion of what we called the nice properties, verb, the simple construction, namely sort of verb constructions, focusing on the simple construction. And we're going to look at sort of, I would say, more of a discussion about the meaning of what we sort of look at we look at the simple construction. We're going to look at sort of the meaning of the simple tenses, and we're going to compare that a little bit to the present continuous. In doing so, we're going to use, I'm going to, you will find much of this information in the verb phrase document that you have on the second page. You'll notice that there is a heading that says the simple tenses on the second page. You'll find it there, and followed by another heading, the progressive or continuous aspect, be plus verb ing. And then further down on the next page, I think it's page 3, there's sort of a table, right, where you can see sort of 4 columns. We have the simple past, second column the simple present, third column present continuous, fourth column past continuous, right? And there's sort of a comparison. There's sort of a first row, past state, present state, action happening now, past action. So we're gonna talk about that, right? And this is something we're gonna look at in class together. So what we're going to focus on today is we're just going to look at the simple present, really, and then we're going to compare it to the present continuous. Okay, so as you remember, right, we looked at the simple present. We said, oh, what do we have here? We have the present tense. We're going to talk more later about what that means for something to be in the present tense, right? But we notice we have this simple construction, right? Okay, which means that, if we have like an affirmative statement, I drive a car every day, the verb phrase is drive, right? There's no auxiliary verb, right? We just have what we call the lexical verb, which is drive, right? Which is the verb that refers to the event, right? Driving, that, yeah, in this case it's an action, right? And it just means we have a one verb verse phrase when it's affirmative, okay? Now the idea is why do we use that verb form and not another one, right? So we're actually, this in this video we're going to sort of compare that to the present continuous, which would be I am driving, right? So what we're really comparing is the simple construction, right? That we have in the present simple with what we call the be plus verb ing construction, which we have in the present continuous, right? So the question is the differences in meaning. So we have sort of simple construction on the one hand, and then we have versus be plus verb ing. Now on the document, that I just referred to, on page 3, we have this whole chart. We're not going to go over everything today. We're just going to sort of look maybe at the first, maybe we'll look at just the first 2 comparisons between present states, actions happening now. I'm reading, I'm looking at the first row in this chart between the simple present, present continuous, which are in the middle, right? Rows 2 and 3. Present state, action happening now. That's the first distinction. The second one, as you see, we have 2 parentheses. We have the simple present atemporal use and the present continuous, action happening now or around now. So we're just going to look at that, and then we'll we'll look more at the details. We'll review it in class together, and then we'll look more in details later on. Okay, so let's start with this simple construction. What it's all about. There's something, the choice of, let's say, the simple construction instead of the be plus verb ing construction, right? Okay. We're going to use one instead of the other according to the way we want to represent this activity, right? And you can think of sort of language being a lot like sort of a video camera, right? Let's say we have something like we were talking about this event driving, right? Okay. So we have like a car, We have a car going down the road, right? Okay. Now, I can sort of represent this, right? I can represent this in different ways depending on which construction I use. I can say I drive, right? Or I can say I am driving, right? And the choice of one instead of the other really makes us visualize the thing differently, right? So, and what we call that is this question of aspect. Aspect is the way we represent the activity, right? And when we have the be plus verb ing, we're going to say that that's the incompleted aspect. Okay? And with the simple construction, not everyone agrees on this. Some people say there isn't. I can say sort of the zero or the global aspect. Okay. So let's maybe start with this simple construction, this sort of zero or global aspect. Now, some people say there is no aspect, and what they're saying is we're not really representing this. We're not really visualizing this thing. We're just sort of evoking the event, in this case driving, in the most basic way. And that kind of makes sense because when we look at the ways we use the simple present, you're aware we use it when we talk about sort of things in general, right? We don't really want to see that something's happening at a specific time, or we don't want to really see that this there was a sort of we're at a certain stage in the progression of this activity. We just want to sort of evoke it in a sort of a basic way, and that's why some people say that sort of there is no aspect. Other people say no, this is other linguists or grammarians. Some grammarians are going to say that we're not visualizing it or representing it at all. Just sort of referring to it without really representing it. Others say no, it's sort of this form of what we call global sort of you can think of it as sort of default, basic, global sort of, we represent it as a whole and we don't really go too far into it, right? So it's very close to sort of not really representing it at all, and we're not really visualizing it in any way. Whereas with be plus verb ing, right, we're talking about the incompleted aspect, right? Okay, and notice that is going to be used for what we're saying is at the present. Now notice just the fact that we're using the incompleted aspect, we're really anchored in present time because we're saying at this current time, at this very moment in time, as I'm speaking right now, right, the very moment of when I'm speaking, the pen is falling, right? And that doesn't take very long, right? This is the pen that's falling, right? What I'm saying is there's the beginning of this activity. I drop the pen, it begins. I'm going slow motion here. Drop the pen, falls, right? And then it hits the ground, it's done falling, right? So when I say the pen is falling, we're saying that this action, falling, is incompleted, which means we're in the middle of it, right? And it also means we can kind of see it. Look, the pen is falling, look, right? Okay, so that's just to give us sort of an idea of this. When we use be plus verb angs, we're saying is as we speak, right? T equals 0. That's right now, right? This activity, right? Sort of going on up until now, and what we understand, which is sort of implicit in this I would say this statement, is that it's not finished. That usually means it's going to continue, but perhaps we just stopped, but that's what we usually understand, but it's not necessarily stated. But what we're saying is up until now, it's been happening, right? Okay, which means we're firmly anchored in the present. So that can explain the first use. Remember in our little chart, I'm just sort of referring to you to the chart that you have on page 3. Here we have the simple past, simple present, present continuous, past continuous. So we have columns 2 and 3, column 2, simple present, column 3, present continuous. The first use, we have action happening now, right? He is running. And of course, you've learned that when we have, let's say, that's what we're looking at this present continuous. Notice you say is, you're never going to say is it rains, right? You're saying non. Ça c'est quelque chose qui se déroule sous mes yeux au moment où je parle, et c'est pas fini. Donc, je devrais l'utiliser obligatoirement. Okay. And so another thing is, you'll notice that we said action happening now. So maybe we have to talk a little bit about what an action is.